Trustee Michelle, Counselor Rudd. Assuming we have to wait for Commissioner Collins, unless Evan, you were gonna speak, or somebody else was gonna speak, maybe Michelle.
No, Counselor, Commissioner Collins was planning to speak. I'm going to call him right now, just make sure that he accepted the invite that I sent him, but I'm going to call him, make sure he's not having any trouble logging on.
Okay, thank you. Michelle, did you have items that you had to present?
I'm going to speak on two of the items that we had on the Cities Rise, and then the contract for RFP services for blight busting. But I think that there was a couple other ones that we had.
Okay, so as we wait for Commissioner Collins, you want to go ahead and get started so we're not sitting idle?
Sure, yeah. So the first item that we had is a request to amend the budget details in the ordinance that authorized us to pursue an MOU with the Center for Court Innovation. The not to exceed amount is still the same, the 500,000, 65 and some change, but we just needed to update it because the way that we formatted the budget wasn't the way that their accounting had it formatted. So it's basically just making sure that what they submitted is consistent with what's in the ordinance. But there isn't any substantive changes to it other than that.
Can you refresh my memory a little bit just about the entire thing?
Yeah, so back in late December, we went before the council and asked for permission to enter into an MOU with the Center for Court Innovation so that they could carry out the community ambassador portion that we're looking to put forward as part of the Cities Rise grant. So we were authorized with a not to exceed amount of about 500,000 or 565,000, excuse me, with them. And so the way that we submitted the proposed budget in the ordinance at the time, their accounting office just breaks it out a little bit differently. It's all in the same kind of categories. We're still doing the same kind of provision of services in terms of the number of staff that they will be bringing on through that grant. We just wanted to make sure that the numbers all lined up both in the ordinance and then what they actually submitted to us once we kind of worked through that. So.
Okay, and so this revision would make it to where it lines up on both sides, I'm assuming.
Correct, yes. But there's no change in the amount or anything like that, so.
Okay. Is the, because I honestly, I don't remember the details on this one, but is the payment, is it just one payment to them or are you doing it in increments?
No, it'll be in increments. They'll be billing us monthly for a duration of 24 months for the work that's completed as they go through, so.
Okay. All right. Any questions?
We're just basically handling the grant. If we get the grant, we'll be the people that pay the people from the Centers for Court Innovation. Is that the idea?
So there's two components of this grant that we're kind of carrying out. The first part is the Community Ambassador Program, which is what's being managed by the Center for Court Innovation. We're working closely with them on that, and we're still kind of overseeing it, but they are the ones that are doing the kind of hiring. The people that are hired will be employees of the Center for Court Innovation. The other part of the grant we're managing completely ourselves, and that's related to bringing on some additional legal interns to help kind of increase some of the court capacity that we have with the cases that we're bringing from a code of enforcement perspective.
So
we're managing all of that ourselves.
These ambassadors will be like neighborhood residents?
Yes, yep.
And will they be dealing with a lot of issues in the neighborhoods or just particular issues as in relationship to the Center for Court Innovation?
They're going to be focusing largely on housing issues, but there also, I think, will be kind of some related components in just like general neighborhood quality of life concerns that people have. We want to use it as an opportunity to kind of have some people in the community that are out advocating about not just code enforcement issues that they might be having, but other kind of things that we have available that could help in terms of resources like the Financial Empowerment Center or home headquarters, or how do you get in touch with the land bank about something. So there's a broad spectrum, but largely speaking, it's a focus on housing and those types of issues.
If myself or any of my fellow
Michelle?
counselors know some very active neighborhood residents
Go ahead.
that would want to maybe avail themselves an opportunity to be an ambassador of the neighborhood, should we just give you the names or what?
Yeah, if you
First
want to,
hiring?
if they have, yeah, there's going to be a posting that is put out that CCI will be putting out, and I'm more than happy to circulate it to the council once that's posted. They're currently on a hiring freeze with COVID, so that hasn't gone out yet. But as soon as it does, I will share that to you. And if anyone that you know is submitting them, I'm more than happy to make sure that we pass it along. So
this will all be predicated on us getting the grant, obviously, right? Correct?
no, we've already gotten the grant. We've already gotten the grant.
Okay, so I don't understand. If we already got the money, they're hesitant about hiring the neighborhood residents because of the COVID restrictions.
They're not hesitant about hiring any neighborhood residents. It's just that their organization at the moment is not able to do onboarding for this exact moment, but they're anticipating that that's going to be lifted very soon.
Okay, thank you, Michelle.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions? Counselor Paniagua, I know you had unmuted your mic. Were you attempting to ask a question?
Yes, thank you. I was just wondering, does the grant stipulate the eligibility process for these individuals to be hired?
Counselor, I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch all of that. Can you repeat the question?
Is there an eligibility process to qualify to be an ambassador, a community ambassador? How do you choose people to be part of this?
So, I mean, there's going to be a hiring and application process. So the Center for Court Innovation, specifically the West Side Peacemaking Center, is overseeing all of that. We have put in their MOU that we would prefer that each ambassador that's hired, we have said that there should be a representative of the North Side, South Side, East Side, and West Side, and kind of those are their geographic areas that they're assigned to. And we preferred that the people that are assigned to those positions are residents of those neighborhoods. So that's all kind of spelled out in the agreement that we've put forward with them, and they have every intention of kind of making sure that those residents are living in those neighborhoods. But besides that, there really isn't any like special requirements. If you have particular types of experience in community organizing, that's certainly a benefit for you, but they're really just looking for people who would be good ambassadors of the neighborhood and be able to effectively kind of reach residents about these types of things. So.
Thank you.
So just when they do have the information, just share it to all of us so that way we can get it out to our particular network as well.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. All right, and you said you had another one, right?
Yeah, so the only other one, and we talked about this at the last session, it was the RFP for architectural services. And I think the outstanding question was where the particular amount and what grant that was going for. It is not to exceed $15,900, and it is all coming out of the Zombies grant. So this is another grant that we've got from the Attorney General's office, and specifically related to any type of blight busting projects that we're doing. So if you're not familiar with that, it's properties where we have gone and corrected the exterior code violations. They've all been properties that are vacant and owned by banks. So in some cases, in order to get those scopes of work completed, it's been beneficial for us to have an architect in place.
You're setting aside up to $15,000 to just pay for this particular service?
So it's a not to exceed amount, and it would just be on an as needed basis if there's a particular property candidate that we have where we need that service. It doesn't mean that we will use that whole amount of money. So.
questions?
Counselor, I'm looking at what we sent you, and it seems as if we sent you an earlier version of that draft of that letter that have the budget line in it. So I will send that. I'll locate that letter and send that right over to you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Michelle, did you have another one, or are we going right over to Commissioner Collins?
That's it for me.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Michelle.
Thanks, Michelle.
You got a question?
No, I was just saying, waving at Michelle.
Just
See ya.
being polite.
Yes.
Okay. All right, Commissioner Collins. Commissioner Collins, are you ready?
My apologies for not finding the mute button. So yeah, my apologies also for being a minute late. We're having a wrap up discussion after last night's lead meeting that I thought went really, really well. Like the feedback on that. I think that Councilor Driscoll's may want to speak to that in a little bit. The two things that we wanted to address before that, one is the Untack Award. So this is the last year of the current agreement. So it's a 1-year award that we're making as opposed to the 2-year contracts that we've done in the previous 2 rounds. It's been sent around that outlines the commission or the advisory committee's choice. I think that we feel really strongly around how good a lot of these proposals actually are. Some of them are new, some of them are continuing work. And Councilor Allen is a part of the committee. I certainly want to, yield to your comments on it. We also have Winona Timmons, who's led the process with us on this. So, Councilor, is there anything that you wanted to speak on specifically about this one?
I was okay with the decisions that we made. There was a lot of there were a few that we cut this year due to COVID because they wanted funding for like festivals or street fairs or parades. And of course, with everything that's going on, we probably won't be able to have those. But this year we did try to focus on like real neighborhood initiatives that could really help individuals instead of just like the large gatherings. So I was good on my decision with those. I'm sure we'll get some pushback from some of the community organizations, but it is what it is. And there probably won't be any parades or street fairs this year, so I think that's fair. I see Winona is on the line. Did you want to add something? No? Okay. All right. Did any, I know they sent it out to everybody else. Did anybody have any questions in regards to like the different organizations and the dollar amounts? Okay. Counselor Hogan?
Yeah, Counselor, I didn't get anything at all. So
Okay.
Evan, maybe, or whoever's in charge of sending stuff out. I haven't been getting some stuff, so.
Councilor Hogan, I've been sending it per the leadership's request to the committee members. I apologize. I've been sending to all the counselors, but if I missed you on any of the appropriate committees, I'll double check and make sure you get the letters.
Okay.
Okay, so what we'll, I'm okay with moving all of these forward at the other committee members. But Councilor Hogan, when you get it and you review it, if there's anything that sticks out to you or you want to talk about it, so we can discuss it.
Certainly. Thank you, Counselor.
Yep, no problem. So for the committee members, are you guys all set with moving these 3 items forward?
I am.
That was great.
I am.
Yeah.
Okay, so Green Bay and.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Commissioner Collins, do you have anything else?
Yes, Councilors, you and I talked about, there was a letter from TNT that was submitted from TNT directly to the clerk. And I was wondering did you want to cover that today as well? Okay, so TNT in the current budget year, the budget that the council adopted was in at $80,000. We have typically in the past paid them in multiple disbursements. This year, they submitted a letter that was asking for one payment upfront in full. With both the fact that that's different than what has been in the current economic climate. Councilor Allen and I were discussing the fact that perhaps we want to look at paying this out quarterly. That way we serve of what type of from the feds or how the state's actions might affect us. If it were acceptable to the committee, that's what we would suggest.
I'm okay with doing that break up into the 4 payments rather than the large lump sum of the 80,000. But I'll be interested to hear what the other committee members how they feel about it or how we should move.
I'm dealing with a bad connection, so if that was towards me, my apologies. I was not able to hear that.
I was talking to the other councilors.
I'll chime in. Michael, why did they give any reason why they wanted it all up in front?
Councilor, they didn't state a reason for it. We know that they do currently have some money. To be honest with you, if I was them, I would, looking at the current economic climate, I'd try to grab every penny that I could right now too. It seems like just kind of a prudent move on their part to at least ask for it. But I have nothing other than speculation to go on.
Well, I know that they're working on some important neighborhood initiatives. They're sort of interesting and new. But I think they're getting grants for them, but maybe that's some sort of bulwark. Maybe if I give Tina a call, we can find out, perhaps, if that'd be okay with Councilor Allen.
Oh, absolutely. That's fine. You can give her a call.
I mean, one of the initiatives I know they're working on for a grant is to take advantage of this situation and have Zoom neighborhood meetings, which I think would be pretty interesting, since in my experience, it seems like in some of the meetings I attend on Zoom, they actually garner more people than ever been in person. I'll reach out to her and find out why. And I'll report back to you, Councilor Allen.
Okay, thank you.
Because I'm a good little soldier.
I appreciate that.
Okay.
Councilor Hogan, to your point, when you look at the Untack Awards, one of those awards is to Southside TNT.
Oh, good.
They're absolutely being smart about how they go after additional funding to do the projects.
All right. Any other questions or opinions? No? Okay. So, Councilor Hogan, you just, after you talk to her, you can get back to me or send an email, and then we can discuss it further. So, I would say, I mean, I would assume that it's okay to move forward on the to put it on the agenda. Is everybody else okay with that?
That's fine with me.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Hey, Commissioner Collins, do you have anything else?
So the last thing I'd actually like to turn over to Councilor Driscoll, and that's regarding the lead ordinance that was discussed last night.
Okay, we got off the call. Well, I know I got off the call early last night, and I think pretty much everybody was there anyways. But if you just give like a small snippet of at least the part of it, I think that'll be fine. But I know a few counselors did have some questions, but I don't know if everyone is here to be able to answer the questions. So that may be the issue. But go ahead, Councilor. Just
Yeah, I could feel that if being that I've pushed this legislation along, kind of been in the weeds, and if any counselors have any questions regarding the legislation, they can follow up with me, and I'll get those answers from Joe or Ken or Michael about implementation and how we move forward. Yeah, I think the thing that we heard the most was constituents concerned about us testing one unit and that not triggering instant inspection of other units. So if it's a 3-unit and one comes up lead positive, a potential hazard for poisoning, they felt that should automatically trigger inspections of the other 2. I think legally, we've, throughout Councilor Bay's legislation about interior inspections, we had those conversations about the nuance in law about forcing someone to open their doors for you and the rights with private property, and putting that into the language legally presents some challenges. But we just got off a call, and we're going to make sure that if we can't legally force a triggered inspection of the other 2 units, that at least operationally we will be reaching out to the landlords and those other tenants to let them know that one of the units in the space was tested and that the other 2 units should be tested. So we'll reach out to both the tenants and the landlord to make sure that they're made aware. So that's one of the big issues. So we think that while we may not be able to mandate it legally, we will be able to address the issue operationally moving forward. I think that's it. And were there any other issues, Michael, that I'm missing?
So actually, let Ken Tousley address a couple things on there, because he'll catch the rest of it.
hold on 1 second, Ken. Driscoll, when you said that legally, this was advice from Joe Barry, or this was whose legal advice was?
Yeah, from Joe Barry. I brought up to him, would it be possible to add a triggering if we inspect one unit, it triggers inspection of the other 2 units. So there's a couple of things. One, when someone, if we catch it on typically, unless it's complaint driven, we'll be getting in there every 3 years is the goal for when someone does a certificate of occupancy. So the goal is that we, when a landlord applies for 1 unit, typically we would be checking all 3 units in a 3-unit place. So that's one operational point. But yeah, when I asked Mr. Barry, would it be possible to automatically trigger, he said the laws of private property still apply. So, the same thing we have with the interior inspection, we would have to get an inspection warrant if we wanted to get in without the landlord or the tenant's consent. So the idea is to say, when we do have the 1 unit triggered, to say we reach out to the landlord, we reach out to the tenants to make them aware of the situation and ask their permission to get into those other units. If they don't comply, then I think, take it on a case-by-case basis. But if we know that the other 2 are potentials that we do seek, we could potentially seek warrants to get in for inspection. And I think Ken said legally that would give us the grounds. If 1 unit had tested, that would give us strong grounds to get an inspection warrant should that be the situation where both the tenant and the landlord are non-compliant with the request that we put out. But triggering it automatically legally presents a legal challenge because of the private property rules. And even though the health concern does give us legal grounds, we would still need a warrant. But Ken, did you have any other further thoughts on that one?
I think you covered it well, Counselor. I just think the important thing to understand is when it comes to 1 and 2s is that we need to have enough evidence to receive a inspection warrant to perform the interior inspections of the other unit. So I think that's something that Jake and I will work on going together.
So there's no way legally that it can be written that the entire structure to be examined.
Not on a
expected.
I think again that if we get to, if we get in there under the guide of the certificate of occupancy, the owner occupancy certificate of occupancy, then we will be checking all three. If it comes from a complaint, we can't have it so that if one comes up positive, that legally triggers the other two. At least not a simple, that's not a simple fix. I think that still violates the legal areas that we had with interior inspections.
Counselor, if you have, I want to add on that. 3 families and above, Counselor Allen, we will perform the periodic inspections on them. So we'll test all units within that on a 3 to 5 year basis, how the ordinance is spelled out. So I'm not so much concerned about the 3 to 5s in the ordinance. I'm more concerned about the 1s to 2s. How do we get into that second unit if the first unit calls for a complaint? That's where we need to concentrate our efforts on.
So I feel like we need to at least move that portion of this ordinance stronger. As of right now, it's not really like anything definite. You know what I mean? We would still be waiting on the second unit to make a complaint, or you know what I mean? I just feel like we gotta find a way to make that stronger.
No, and that's one of the problems we have when it comes to 1 and 2s, is that we've been sued prior to perform those inspections inside. I've spoken to Mike Collins and Jake about how we can handle things going forward. But I think it's going to be a matter of a inspection warrant on those 1 and 2s other than the 3s and above. So I think we have to work a little bit harder on how we handle that. And I'll work with these guys to go forward.
Okay. So even when you leave us in a couple days, you still gonna help?
Oh, I'll always be here to help, Counselor Allen. You know that.
Hey, Counselor Allen, just to add a couple things. Yeah, Ken and I will still be in touch on a lot of items, but I also think a proactive approach with the landlords and the tenants can resolve everything we're discussing. So, if Ken lives on the first floor and I inspect his apartment and I find lead hazards and I'm testing there, and Counselor Allen, you live on the second floor, maybe I try to knock on your door and tell you why I was down on the first floor apartment. Maybe you let me in. Maybe I'm working with the landlord and all the tenants in that building, but I think there's proactive ways for us to get into these units without going as far as needing a warrant. I think we can do that. I think we can find ways to do that proactively. So I think that's an approach we'll talk about, but I do think that's quite possible for us to do.
This is Councilor Penny. It was also mentioned last night that they were talking about training the landlords to be able to do some of this testing, and I that's a way to buy into the project and be not only responsible but responsive to the need.
Counselor, I might have Mike Collins speak more on this, but we do have a great outreach program through N.B.D with Mary Margaret O'Hara that works with landlords to address their lead issues and the problem.
Yeah, and Councilor Peniagua, I would also say that we've Mary Margaret, myself, and others, we've done meetings with multiple landlord groups to sit with them. We had some outreach from Jai Subedi and Ty Shaw to meet with some of the landlords in the north side where the New American community is based, to try to do outreach. There are efforts out there to try to outreach, though. I mean, obviously we need to continue that and make it more robust. But we have done a lot of that legwork, and I know Mary Margaret with the lead program here has done a lot of outreach to landlords as well. So I think it's something we need to keep going and keep we haven't we haven't hit a quota where we said, okay, that's enough reaching out to landlords. I think it's an ongoing process, but I think there has been, some efforts, some robust efforts to try to connect with those people and from multiple units, multiple agencies.
Ken, if I could interrupt here, Ken, you mentioned something about you mentioned the concern about lawsuits regarding getting in the other apartments in 1 and 2 families.
Yeah, Counselor, it's ideally what we will look at is during periodic inspections, these properties that need to be tested for lead would be done every 3 to 6 years, depending on the high risk area versus the non-high risk area. For those properties that don't apply for a rental registry, and somebody complains, so a tenant in 101 Main Street complains, we would perform the inspection, also perform a lead test of the areas that are required, and try to work with the landlord of that property to get into the other unit to test. There's nothing that says that we can't test the exterior as well. So we need to work not only with the tenant that we're receiving a complaint on, but also the other unit if we're dealing with that as well.
Well, where's the legal ramifications?
If we
I
can't
mean,
get into the second union, if we can't get into the second unit, then we need to use our tools within the city corp council to get into that second unit.
So with Council Allen's point, so if we build legislation that allows us to get in the second unit,
we already had that through our rental registry, Counselor.
Oh, so we haven't, because we haven't had it in our rental registry?
Yeah, we have it in the rental registry to use an inspection warrant to get into these places. The fact that we're talking about lead will give us a huge advantage to get that warrant for the next unit. But if it's a 2-unit, I look at it as the 1 unit we test and the exterior of the structure is going to give us a lot of teeth going forward to any court that we need to for the second unit.
Well, good. Because my feeling has always been, if we have to do something on behalf of the city of residents, we shouldn't hesitate if we have to worry about being sued, because we got lawyers that fight those lawsuits. So,
no, Counselor, I agree with you 100%. This one, I think, is a no-brainer going forward.
Okay, thanks, Ken. Thank you, Counselor Allen.
Welcome. Any other questions or comments? No? Okay.
Counselor, just last thing, I know we're at time, but did want to recognize, as you said, that this is Ken's last meeting with this committee as our codes director. And so I just want to take a moment and say what an honor it is for the fact that I got paths with our jobs for at least 3.
God bless you, Ken. Still standing after 15 rounds, brother. Awesome. Great job, really. For a tough job you had. Good luck, Jake.
I appreciate, and I wanted to make a point to thank all of the counselors, especially Counselor Allen, who has supported me since going on 3 or 4 years now. She was able to go with us to Memphis for a couple conferences, and she learned that we're not as bad as everybody thinks we are. But I am happy to. It's a true statement. But I am very proud of what I've done here, and appreciate all of you guys supporting me going forward. And I'm looking forward to working with you as streetlights. Once the streetlights start on June 24th, I'll give you guys a new email address, and we'll go from there. So once again, I want to thank all the counselors for supporting me over the years. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Ken.
It's been great working with you, buddy. Appreciate you. I wish we could have a pizza party and a little cake to throw you off properly, but we'll have to do an awkward wave on the internet instead.
I'm good at the awkward waves.
I tell you what, tell Counselor Allen I would love some Memphis ribs.
You can get the Memphis ribs, and I get my the barbecue tofu.
You get your tofu. If
there's nothing else, that we can go ahead and end this meeting. Good luck, Ken. Good luck, Jake, on your endeavors. All right, and that's it. Go ahead and close this meeting. So all of those items are ready.
Thank you, Counselor. Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you, Counselor.